So a friend of mine, Justine, we had a glass of wine one night in Brooklyn and we were like, shall we go to culinary school in Italy? And that's literally how it happened. So I think maybe she initially had found that specific school, and I think we booked it within the week.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Today on the show, we have a great double episode. First up is the Los Angeles-based chef, recipe developer, and writer Chloe Walsh, author of Anchovies and Soup, a terrific Substack that muses about food life in LA, the writer's native England, and points between. Also on the show, I catch up with my old friend and amazing photographer and director, Eyal Yassky-Weiss. We talk about some of Eyal's recent travels, our collaboration while on assignment in Ethiopia, and his new travel recommendation project, Unnamed Traveler. I hope you enjoy these two great conversations. Chloe Lucas Walsh, welcome to This is Taste. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Matt. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I love talking to you. We've met once, but we've exchanged a lot of emails and texts. I love what you do. We're going to get into a little bit of your story, growing up in the West Midlands and going to school in Bristol, moving to LA 10 years ago or the West Coast.
Yeah.
And now still living in LA and loving it and part of the mix. But first, you're here hanging out in New York. Where are you going? What's on your radar?
Okay, well, as soon as I got off the plane last night, of course, straight to Servo's, which actually I feel like that's kind of a pattern. Just it's the first restaurant I go to as soon as I land in New York. Had delicious food there. I love Four Horsemen. I know it's a common statement, but it is so good. It's always so good. I've made reservations before, but I've always walked in and they've been so lovely and accommodating, and the food's amazing. You
grew up in the West Midlands, and I want to get a sense of what food is like in your household growing up there.
There's not a specific West Midlands type of food, British food as a whole. There's nothing like specifically regional, but my mum and my dad were both very good cooks. Things like, this is going to sound gross, but I promise it's really nice. Liver and onions is it's a common British dish that was on the menu a lot. My mom made a really good spaghetti bolognese, and then like various dinner party stuff. They were always throwing dinner parties, my parents. It was always a ton of people around my house and lots of food.
A lot of entertaining, and conviviality, and
absolutely,
which translates to Chloe Cooks and the community you've built with your Substack. You've got a vibe. You also have a great sense for design and style. So that's good.
Yeah, that I think probably stems from me studying art. So it all kind of plays into what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not specifically painting anymore.
It's all good. Like food maybe is it's great that we have you as a member of the community.
Where I'm from, it's the country. I'm from like very much the countryside. I personally couldn't wait to leave as soon as I turned 18.
Yeah.
But you guys, I'm sure, would go and absolutely love it. It's, actual Tudor buildings and cobbled streets and very beautiful. But it's countryside. So, you grow up kind of, there's not a lot to do. So you're always kind of trying to find the fun things to do.
I mean, guess what? That's what the Midwest is like, frankly. So
exactly.
I got the hell out of there when I was 18. And I went to college in the Midwest. But it's like a youth thing. But one more question about the West Midlands. You grew up in an area famous for inventing Worcestershire sauce.
Yes, I did.
I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I'd like to get your sense of cooking with Worcestershire. I'm saying it literally wrong in 5 different ways. How do you say it?
Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah.
But I will say, honestly, even in the UK, unless you're from Worcester, many people don't pronounce it correctly. It's a hard one. As I was saying to you earlier, I'm from kind of around all the shires. So I'm like, there's Gloucestershire, Worcestershire, Herefordshire. Yeah, but Worcestershire is how you say it.
Okay, Worcestershire, great. So thank you for that course correction. How do you cook with it? I got one thing I use it for, which is a little different. How do you cook with it?
You can put it in anything and everything. Personally, it can zhuzh up a bolognese. I know it's not traditional, but trust me.
Yeah.
And in the same vein, cottage pie or shepherd's pie, another, traditional British classic. Shepherd's pie being lamb, cottage pie being beef, traditionally. Beans on toast.
Oh, yeah.
soups. The base is anchovy and spices. So kind of, I guess it's kind of a British version of fish sauce.
I think
it's
that's
umami.
such a smart way to say it, the anchovy. I get a little tamarind in it too.
Yeah, it's definitely got like a little kind of tart sweetness to it.
There's some tartness that I think of tamarind.
Yeah.
I grew up, my mom used it. My grandfather was born in Liverpool, so she always had Worcestershire sauce around the house.
I'm sure, yeah.
And I don't know, my mother just somehow put this in. We put in guacamole. It's a very different type of than the like cilantro, lime, shallot version, but it's a different type of avocado spread. I kind of like it.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to try it. And I'll let you know what
you
I think.
can not like it as a native, but I appreciate you being open-minded. Okay, you end up in London. You're working in the industry, and I don't think I've ever asked you this. Where did you work? Are you working like standard places? Are you working at like some of the hot dog places, the cool kid places? Yeah, where are you at?
I wasn't working in restaurants in London, so yeah. I worked in kind of bars and restaurants, supporting myself through college
in Bristol.
Yeah. Yep. And then I kind of got more into interiors and doing like some bits of fashion in London. And so, yeah, I wasn't really in the mix of the food scene. I was eating out and dining out. But I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I have rheumatoid arthritis, which I had a total knee replacement 3 years ago. But at that time in London is when it was very bad. And so the cooking kind of took a backseat because I couldn't really stand and do it as much. And so, yeah, I kind of went into a very different career at that point.
Yeah. Let me ask you, in terms of restaurants at that time in London, I'd love to get a sense of London at that era that you were visiting, and that, that was good.
So obviously all the classics were still there, and I would frequent them often. St. John, Rochelle Canteen. But I feel like when I was living in London, there was a massive surge of the kind of smash burger craze, which was over 10 years ago now. But yeah, there was always there was Meat Liquor, which I think is still going. And all those kind of American type of restaurants were coming in, and there was a big influx of that. Which was great because London had never really seen that burger scene before.
The American style. I was just there this past summer, and it felt so American, more than ever before. I've been there in like 5 years.
Yeah,
it just felt like walking through like Shoreditch or even in Chelsea. It felt like New York and maybe the east side of LA.
Yeah. And I actually said that when we landed today. We're stopping in Midtown, and I was like, God, it really reminds me of London. Yeah. And I don't usually say that. Obviously, people always liken London and New York because they're two big cities, but I don't think they're actually very similar. But
definitely not.
Yeah, I feel like the restaurant scene and the food scene has collided a lot, actually, in terms of trends and things like that with both places and other places. But yeah, it wasn't quite the natural wine and small plates scene in London just yet when I was there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a bummer that London doesn't feel like on its own, and maybe you could say New York is in its own either, and we're all kind of going, moving towards the same.
Yeah.
And it's more, I just saw a lot of American like direct to consumer brands opening stores.
Yeah.
Like, that was the biggest thing. Seeing these brands pop up.
Yeah. I think also the food scene in London when I was there, but also now, there's a lot of chains, which you don't see as many chains, I think, in like Los Angeles, for example. There are chains, obviously, but not as many. Like in central London, there's lots of chains. I'm just trying to think of some now, like Gourmet Pizza Kitchen. There's like, you have to look for the small independents a little more. That's just what I think. Yeah. In London.
Let's move to Chloe Cooks. Like, I'd like to get a sense of how you started the Substack and you started growing a following. I mean, I really have been impressed with the way you think about recipes. And again, like, your aesthetic is really sweet, and it feels like it's of a movement. It feels definitively West Coast, I'd say. You really are living your truth out there, which is a good truth.
Yeah.
Tell me about the community.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I kind of told you I had my so I was working for an amazing interior company called Zia Tile, and I got my knee replacement. Yep. It's a classic story. I have always cooked, but I had never really shared the way that I started sharing before on Instagram. And this was probably like 5 years ago now. And then the pandemic hit. And of course, we were all cooking like crazy. So I was sharing. And my following did start growing, but I was still working full time at Zia. But then I had my knee replacement, and was kind of deciding what to do, because at this point I'd already set up an email. I think I'd already set my website up, and I was getting lots of different interesting, fun proposals through email, but I was working full time. So it was really hard to be able to do both of them. Anyway, the opportunity presented itself, and I decided to just not go back and see if I could make freelance cooking work. And I've never looked back. Very gratefully, never looked back.
It's very cool. How do you spread your time out between content creation? I know you do some food styling as well. And you, of course, have a pop-up. I want to get into like your pop-up business and what you're thinking about there.
So I do like different food styling, recipe development, sometimes for like brands. I've done some things for restaurants or helping kind of with menu ideas. My day-to-day, there's content creation. So I'm working with brands in like the content creation way. I always find it hard saying influencer, but let's call it content creation.
Yeah, let's call it that. I like it.
But, no offense, because, we're all in it. And then, I do like, I'll do dinners for brands. So brands will come to me and we'll figure out things like that. But I also have my own supper club and doing more actual pop-ups solo as well. So like Chloe Cooks pop-ups, which has been really fun, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I know you've had them recently in LA.
Mm-hmm.
What's a Chloe Cooks pop-up? What's it like? What's on the menu? Take us through like what the scene is, because I think our listeners should get a sense of your style, because again, I really love what you do. I'm going to link to you in the show notes, your Substack to subscribe to. I really enjoy it.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's try and describe my food. Okay, it's simple, accessible, delicious. I would say modern European. It's got lots of regional Italian, some Spanish kind of influences, rustic French.
Yep.
Definitely has a British sensibility to it, but it's also very much West Coast, farmers market driven, very seasonal. I think I have a very unique perspective of being British and growing up in the UK, but having lived on the West Coast for 10 years, I feel like it all culminates into kind of how I cook and how I think about food.
Yeah.
And at the supper clubs, it really depends what mood I'm in. So I've done a Sicilian seafood supper club.
How fun is that?
That was so fun.
Yeah, what's the set piece there? What's like the main event?
I did some bucatini with clams. I'm just trying to think.
Love it.
I did some crudos. I'd have to go back and look at them.
No, I mean, you do a lot,
Yeah, but that was very seafood focused. I've just done a British supper club a few weeks ago, which was really fun to do. And I think that was fun because I feel like everyone has a perception of how British food is or what it is, and it's not always the best perception. And
it's changing.
But I think
this show, you know that I smack that shit down.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Those strange stereotypes.
Yeah.
Which we won't even mention because I don't want to give it oxygen.
Right. But I was thinking with this supper club, I didn't just want to do fish and chips or anything too obvious. So I actually did one of the dishes with a scallop. And it was, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I'm sure you are, the River Cafe.
Yeah.
They do this amazing pasta with just a kale sauce. It's like kale garlic. I think it's blended with ricotta. But I thought that would be really nice over a scallop. So kind of, it was British food, but like in my interpretation of British food.
Yeah.
I did a lentil cottage pie, and then I also did like a beef cottage pie, but elevated.
Yeah.
Say elevated.
And so who's coming to these? Like, what's the vibe like? Are you going? Are you like going at a restaurant and popping up, or are you going to like private spaces?
So the supper club is and will always be in my home. I just really love the intimacy of that kind of setting for my curated supper club. But I did a pop-up in Paris last year, so that's not my supper club, but that's more like me, popping up.
I see.
Popped up in Paris last year. I'm popping up in New York a few times coming May and June, which is going to be exciting. I'll tell you more about that. And then I've got some pop-ups coming up in LA as well in the next month or so, which is going to be exciting.
How fun.
Yeah, very fun.
I want to go to Italy, and you studied in Calabria at the Italian Culinary Institute.
Yes.
And, you did that kind of mid-career. It wasn't like you were like young and just starting out in your career. You kind of just went there. I love this experience. Like, share what you were up to there.
Well, you're never too old to change careers.
Yeah, I agree.
As scary as it is, though, I will say it is scary. And I had been wanting to potentially expand a little bit on my skills. Like I said, I've worked in restaurants and I've cooked forever, but I was just starting to think about, I cook a lot of Italian food. I cook a lot of regional Italian food, and I just wanted to kind of dive in deeper there. And so I didn't know what that looked like. I wasn't sure if it was culinary school necessarily, or maybe cooking at a retreat with somebody.
Yeah.
And I ended up, so a friend of mine, Justine, I don't know if you follow Justine's Table. We had a glass of wine one night in Brooklyn, and we were like, shall we go to culinary school in Italy? And that's literally how it happened. So I think maybe she initially had found that specific school, and I think we booked it within the week, and we were off to culinary school.
How cool. So how long are you there, and this is like, I'm like, I want to do this.
It was so fun.
I mean, I like that it's not one of the big boys, and it's not in a part of Italy it's a part of Italy I would very much like to go to.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, Calabria is one of the poorest regions in Italy, but like the landscape, everything about it, the food, the markets was just amazing and just so inspiring. So the actual school itself is right on a cliffside, so like stunningly beautiful anyway. But I was there for 10 days, but they do like 3-month courses as well. And it really was just diving in from the beginning. So I learned more like technical stuff later on in the 10 days.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And honestly, met some of the most amazing people from all around the world that I'm going to be friends with for life.
I love that. I love that it's like a 10-day intensive. You can pick up a lot of skills. So some of our listeners might vibe with that.
Oh, yeah. It was great. I recommend it, honestly. It was quite life-changing.
Let's talk about one of your recipes in particular. It's called the potatoes, or THE all caps. Very Romanesque, not the city, but of the Allison.
Right.
I think you're having some fun with that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what are these potatoes? Like, I looked at the photo. I haven't made them, but I looked at it. I'm like, wow, yeah, you got some technique there, Chloe.
Well, yeah, the potatoes. I decided to call them the potatoes. Allison's very influential to me, obviously, but I think they needed the capitalization because they're, if I do say so myself, that good. It's just a British roast potato.
Yeah.
So there's many different variables here. People would disagree that you should use a russet, like a floury potato. I disagree. Use a Yukon Gold.
Yeah.
You will not look back. Lots of people use duck fat, beef fat. I'm telling you, olive oil is the way. You fluff them up. So your parboil, fluff them up. Preheat the oil in the pan before you throw the fluffed up potatoes in, and then just let them go. You can turn maybe once or twice. It really is that simple, and a good amount of salt.
What's the knife cut? Like how we doing it?
Okay, so you're going to peel. So medium size Yukon Gold.
Yep.
I'd say definitely always peel. Some people choose not to peel. It's worth peeling this time.
Yeah. Especially if you're parboiling, I feel like you need that like peel off where it gets that craggly texture,
exactly,
which then is fried in that.
Because it's a different potato. The unpeeled and this way of doing it is beautiful as well, but it's a different potato. I love that we're talking about potatoes so much.
We sure are. This is a podcast, is a show where we talk about real things like food and cooking and not just restaurants.
Yeah.
We are in it deep. We are talking about technique. I love the use of a Yukon Gold. I agree fully. It's the best frying potato, bar none. It's not the best roasting potato, but it's the best frying potato. It's all French fries food on the Yukon side. I fully agree.
Yeah, so cook, and then you can kind of do whatever size you want. I would say a medium-sized potato, I'll half that, and that's it. So peel half, and then the recipe is on my website.
It's great. I'll link to the show notes. It's a good sense of your style and the way you cook and the way you think about writing recipes.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about food on the internet. I think you have a sense of this. You are on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you like most about food on the internet in 2024?
Oh, I guess it all depends. I mean, just the kind of, I guess we can call it food, but I think the community. The food community I have found has been endlessly supportive and uplifting, and I think that drives me a lot. and just so inspiring. Like, I get so inspired by the internet. I will always say I love Instagram. Some people are like, I hate Instagram.
Yeah.
I love it. I find it so inspiring. I love the explore page, but I love looking at other cooks, seeing what they're doing. Yeah, I really do. I find it very, very inspiring.
Yeah, it is inspiration. I'm with you. I believe. What annoys you the most about food on the internet?
Ooh, probably food porn.
Yeah.
I just find it's clickbait, and I find it a little bit gross, some of it. Again, no hate or shade, because it's some people are very talented at doing those kinds of things. But for me, it's just not very aesthetic for me.
Yeah, just doing it for the sake of the cheese bowl.
Right.
With you.
Yeah.
With you.
Yeah.
Are you gonna open a restaurant? What are you gonna do? You gonna do it? You gonna do it? You gonna do it?
Yeah, I would love to. I would really love to, but I've got a note of exactly how I would want it to be. It's in my phone. I add to it all the time. It would be a very specific restaurant, and I don't even know if this is feasible, because in my mind, I would want it to be called Cafe June. My nanny, my grandma in the UK, it was called June. I'd want it to be called Cafe June. And I would want it to be a cafe.
Yeah.
Maybe a bar on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Again, this is why I don't know if it's feasible. Like,
let's go.
From a money perspective.
I feel like investors are listening. Let's go.
I would want everything to be written on a blackboard, only blackboard. And I would want it to be small. I don't know if you've ever heard of Towpath in London. This is really amazing, cute cafe on the Hackney Canal, which I would like it to have a sense, kind of that sensibility mixed with Justa.
Yeah.
On the east side.
Yeah.
That's
that's where you're gonna put it on the east side.
Oh yeah, I live east.
Yeah.
I am an east side gal, even though I'm British, obviously. But yeah, I live east and love east, and I think that's the only place I would ever envision
it's like
doing.
A Pet Shop Boys song. Just kidding. Close. We're almost there.
Close. Yeah.
I love it. I will give me one more little nugget from that notepad that you have on your phone.
Okay.
We're going right to the phone. Okay, here we are.
I don't know.
I feel like Cafe June is a great idea. Opening restaurants is not a great idea. So maybe it's just a fantasy.
I think I'd want it to be like a kind of a multidisciplinary functional space as well, like where I could I'm imagining like out the back, full kitchen, full prep kitchen, so I can still carry on doing all what I'm doing now. But out the front, when it's not a cafe, maybe I would do lessons, maybe I would do some cooking classes. I'd want it to be a community space. I'd want it to be like a kind of revolving door of people, and maybe I'd host other pop-ups as well, that
Very
kind of
cool.
thing.
Very cool. I'm into this. I'm kind of teasing. I hope you do it. All right, so you talk about community, and you've mentioned a few names, but I've been going to LA a lot recently for book work, and just like I'll be there a bit more this year, and I love hanging out in LA. I get to meet. I've been going for years, but in the past 2 years, I've been really struck by the community there. That I'm not hanging in Manhattan as much these days, or Brooklyn, but I feel LA's just got a really strong scene, and I'd love to get a sense of your community. Who do you consider? This is the time to like name drop a few people, because I really want to give them some airspace, and you're kind of at the center of a cool thing that's happening, which I think has been popping up and festering in a good way for a while, and it's really coming together.
Yeah, honestly, the food scene in LA at the moment is on fire, and I've been saying this for a long time. I personally think it rivals New York. And like as I said before as well, like it's very supportive, and there's some amazing people there. I mean, we've talked about Emily Wilson, and she just, all of her coverage is incredible.
Yep. The Angel is a great publication. I hope Emily.
She's an amazing.
And she's written a lot for Taste as well over the years.
Right. Yeah, she's awesome. My friend Kate, who Cactus JPEG on Instagram. I mean, her Substack is so good. She writes so amazingly, but how she has her finger on the pulse as much as she does, I will never know. She just knows everything in the food scene. She's so like deeply committed to writing about it.
Yeah, Kate's super plugged in. I really like the voice, and I agree Cactus JPEG is a great follow, and I realize she's like semi-anonymous, which I think is cool about the way she operates. And she's like yourself and others, she's like such a huge fan of restaurants and cooking, and I'm so down. Yeah.
My friend Kristen, she has Nomatica Wine, has been such a supportive person to me. Shout out Nomatica. It's a woman-owned, sustainable. She graduated as a somm, but now she has her own company. But when I say that the most supportive person supporting women and women-owned businesses, she's amazing. And we've worked together a few times, we'll continue to work together. And I think I'm just very inspired by Last Word Hospitality, the Sofound Oyster guys doing Bar Santos,
Yep.
Queen Street. They have just hit the nail on the head with the design of the restaurants, but the food is so good in every single one of them. Very inspiring. Ari is doing amazing things, and it's very, very
Found
cool
Oyster,
to see.
definitely a fan, and absolutely would love to unpack some more intel from them if they're on the show. They'll come on.
Yeah.
And like there's so many just chefs and restaurant folks as well in LA that I'm inspired by.
Yeah.
Been doing a lot of work around Korean food, but I think in general it's just such an exciting city. I've been saying this for years. I know it's boring for some of you, but I just cannot reiterate. You're a local. It's such a good city.
Yeah, it's great. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I feel extremely lucky to be there. It's definitely where I'm going to be for the long haul, I think.
And I want to close before I get to the last section. You've mentioned a few times, and I want to really come back on it because I appreciate you sharing. You know, you have rheumatoid arthritis, you've had a knee replacement.
Yeah.
You know, you're sharing your own personal details, and I appreciate that. I think our listeners, let me ask you, with rheumatoid arthritis, and this is from my knowledge, I don't know much about it. Is there a diet food element that helps your arthritis that maybe we could learn more about?
Yeah, I've had it for a long time now, and it's honestly not something that gets me down. It's part of my story. It's who I am. It's just part of my life. But there definitely are things. I mean, I'm on medication for it, which has changed my life immensely.
Great.
But recently, I have cut gluten and dairy as much as I can, regrettably. But it has really, really helped. And I hate restriction. I hate anything like that. But I have to admit it's really helped me. Don't get me wrong. I'm still having a little dairy here and there, and I have to have my courage bagel. But
you gotta have your courage bagel.
I have to. It's important. But it has helped. Yeah. That's kind of the two main things that I would like to say hasn't helped, and I could just carry on eating, but it really has. Yeah.
I appreciate you being honest, and I think you're a great example of how you can live a life on a diet, you know, because of health concerns, but also not restrict yourself of pleasure, because you have a lot of fun with food, and it's inspiring. So thank you for sharing that. I just want to make sure we hit that point. On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire Fast and Furious taste check.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. The best fruit.
Sumo citrus.
It's on our logo of our show.
So
you'll see it right there.
Good. I salivate for it.
Yeah. And I mean, citrus in general, you have a 2.5 month season, 3 month season.
Exactly.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, the worst vegetable.
Cauliflower.
Hurts.
I know. Look,
That
I know you
hurts.
can do so much with it, and I had to actually really think about this because I love all vegetables so much. I don't ever buy it that often, and I don't look for it, so I had to go with that. I'm afraid.
I'm a little bit speechless. I'm actually stumbling over my words. I don't think it's ever come up on our show.
Okay.
It's truly one of the, I would say, mid vegetables. It's not like one of those exceptional. Though I think in Israel, I fucking love cauliflower and like a really, it can be really good, but I respect it.
That's just, I think, on its own, kind of boring.
Yeah,
but you can do many things with it.
Listen, you don't have to explain. This is your survey. All right, the best dessert.
Can I have 3?
Wow. Asking for 3, yes, you can. That's
okay, sticky toffee pudding, with salted caramel sauce specifically.
Yep.
Key lime pie.
Yeah.
Because it's just so good.
New York has a couple spots. I don't know if you've been to Steve's. I think Steve's is out in Red Hook. He's been doing it for years. Steve's Key Lime. I think if you're in Brooklyn, South Brooklyn, you can find.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's good.
No, I will. I'm going to seek it out. And then the budino, specifically the budino mozza. It is so good.
I think Budino, I think chocolate mousse is my number 1, but Budino is probably 2. We wrote a great story maybe like 4 years ago about the Budino. It was like a real love letter.
It's like, it's pudding, but I don't care.
It's
fucking bloody
pudding.
Delicious, yeah.
But you put salt in it and it's like fancy.
Yeah.
And you put it in a cool cup or glass. I mean, talk about a pop-up. You put it on a speed rack and you got like 20 servings and it's easy. You put it in your fridge.
But it tastes good.
Yeah, I love it. Your favorite American fast food chain?
In-N-Out.
Always West Coast 10 years. That's good. What about your favorite UK fast food chain?
I will say, and this is like, I just don't eat that much fast food. Yeah. But favorite, probably, it's been so long. Probably Meat Liquor, I guess, which is like a burger chain.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, probably Meat Liquor.
Your favorite cookbook of all time?
Favorite cookbook of all time? Honestly, both of Alison Roman's first cookbooks. I
Yep.
think she was really pivotal in kind of cooking in a way that it made it accessible to everyone. I think the way that she writes her recipes, and the way that she presents her food as well. I have read every single one cover to cover many, many times, and I pick them up probably the most,
Yeah.
even still now. Yeah, probably both of Alison Roman's first two.
Yeah, I make a couple things from her first book.
Yeah.
I make a cake. I make a like a pound cake.
Yes.
That she has from that first book.
Yes, it's delicious.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Many people might feel the same, but it's just maybe it's an obvious choice. But yeah, I do. I pick them up the most.
Okay, these are the biggies for you. These are big. Your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
Can I pick two?
Sure, we can go there.
I said I love Servers. I go there every single time, so I feel like I have to say that. But Eyal in Brooklyn, I went last time I was here. It's Persian food, I think. Yep. So good. It blew my mind. And they had a saffron martini, which really just took the biscuit for me.
Oh, cool.
Very good.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah, very good.
Your favorite Los Angeles restaurant right now?
Queen Street.
Yeah.
So same people as Found. I love Found, but Queen Street. So they do a tuna frite. So it's tuna cooked like a steak with like
genius.
With the
great fries.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm like trying to imagine the sauce, but it's kind of like a poivre, but it's not because it's cooked with ponzu. Oh my goodness, it's
cool.
So good. It's like a creamy ponzu sauce. They're just killing it. Everything on the menu there's amazing. The oysters are incredible. The hush puppies. It's like a Charleston themed.
Yeah.
I believe Ari's from Charleston. I could be wrong. But it's done so well. It's done very tastefully, and I go there at least once a week.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I've not made it there yet.
Oh, you have to. It's really, really good.
Gotta check it. Your favorite recent cookbook discovery?
Recent is got to be Julius Roberts. I think he cooks in a very similar way to me, or he thinks in a similar way about food as me. And he's got such a sweet story. I loved him on your podcast. He's got a really lovely way of talking about things. Some hard kind of things he was talking about, but I really appreciate the way he talked about it. Yeah, and his food, it's delicious. I've got his cookbook. I've cooked out of it, and it's great.
Yeah, I love that you call it Julius, and I've gotten to know him a little bit from his time in New York, and yeah, like the way, especially the Eliza episode, we've had him on twice actually, but his interview with Eliza, I thought he spoke about food and definitely talked about some hard issues like some animal rights and the way that he does his raises his animals.
Absolutely.
I thought that was so cool.
It was a great episode.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, and the way he talked about it was with so much love and care, but still talking about it in a food perspective. It was great. I really loved it. Yeah, he's great.
I feel Julius, I think the book has done well, and I think he's gained a lot of fans here in the States. I feel like he just doesn't want to be a celebrity.
Yeah, it's kind of like a half with love, but half pulling back.
Definitely.
Yeah, the restaurant that he worked at, Noble Rot, is amazing as well. Like, he's got a great background. But yeah, you're right. I think it's like reluctantly famous.
Exactly.
Well, not famous or, whatever you want to call it, but...
Your favorite city outside the America or the UK for food?
It's got to be Rome.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm going to be going there in October for a little bit, and I'm excited to go back.
Never grow tired of it, ever.
A cuisine you would like to learn more about?
I'm going to say Mexican food. I eat a lot of Mexican food, obviously living in LA, but it's so nuanced, and I just would love to learn. I want to go to Oaxaca. I'm hoping to go to Oaxaca in October this year. I just love it. I absolutely love Mexico City. I've been to a few different places now, and there's just so much more to explore in the food perspective as well. And yeah, I think that's what I would like to explore. I mean, Diana Kennedy, I have all of her books.
Great answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
Favorite sandwich to buy out or make myself?
Oh, good question. Let's say make yourself.
It's got to be Clark Street baguette, the type of baguette that cuts the top of your mouth, because that's the only baguette worth having in my eyes.
Wow, that's a really strong statement. You gotta have a little
crunchy.
Blood.
Yeah, not actual blood.
No, but
And then homemade aioli. a little Calabrian chili paste, and then I'll braise some baby broccoli or some tender stem broccoli with some garlic and some red pepper flakes, and then pop that in the sandwich. And because you're braising it, it kind of softens the bread as it kind of sets.
I love it.
It's a really good sandwich.
When you're in Calabria, did you ever have like neonetta, like the little fish Calabrian chili spread?
No.
It's amazing. I bought some here, and I've written about it on Taste. It's like little baby baby fish in the Calabrian chili.
I need to try this because my favorite food in the world is fish, and then
little bit of Calabrian
spicy.
Yes, it's really dope. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, please. That would be amazing.
Chloe cooks. I fucking love it. Great conversation. Thank you so much for joining this.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Eyal Yassky-Weiss, welcome to This Is Taste. It's been a long time coming. How are you, my friend?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a great being here.
Well, you know, we met when we worked on a story for Taste back in 2018. We both went to Ethiopia.
True.
And I thought that I'd like to get you in the studio just to talk about that experience, because that was an incredible reporting trip. We got to visit the farms of the Guji region, the coffee farms, that is, and head there with Jeff Watts, who was then the head buyer of Intelligentsia. What was that trip like for you?
It was incredible. It wasn't my first time in Ethiopia, and that was the incredible part of it, because I thought I got it all. I know everything. I've been there a million times before. But I think you and I click in terms of values and how we work. So we have shared values, and just doing this with a team that I think we kind of created something that was bigger than the sum of its parts. And it created a whole new world for me that I think influenced a lot of what I was doing after. So that was a really great experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a good time with Jeff. We were out in the country like 12 hours from Addis Ababa, bumping around.
Yeah.
The GOAT, Jeff Watts. Was there something that you took away from the coffee industry from that trip? Because I know you, having gone into the shoot, knew a lot about coffee. You had very strong opinions about coffee. But then it kind of like, for me, the script was like torn up.
Yeah. What my thing is always when I travel to document things is I try to give an angle that's not something that people already know and heard a million times before. So my first giant coffee project was in Vietnam, because I had this thing when I loved messing with people, and I asked them, hey, what do you think is the second largest producer of coffee in the world? And people say Colombia or Costa Rica or whatever. And then I tell them it's Vietnam, and they're always shocked. So I went there first, and I learned a lot about the origins of coffee, and just just the aspect of going to where everything started, where coffee is from, felt kind of magical, I think. So I think my biggest takeaway from this was also a lot of the data and the economy, given the fact that 80% of Ethiopia's economy is coffee. It was fascinating to watch something that's basically, I mean, for me, it's something I consume, but for a lot of the people that we met, is their entire lives. Yeah. That was humbling.
Yeah. And I would like to just hear a little more about Vietnam. You know, in specialty coffee in North America, we really focus on Arabica as the type of coffee that, we're roasting and drinking. But in Vietnam, it's Robusto, which is a very different style. And you have done a lot of work in Vietnam, traveling and visiting farms. And I'd like to get a sense of how is Robusto? How is that expressed in coffee that excites you? Because you really do spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, there's a term, I call it the fourth wave coffee. It's a completely made up term by me. Don't look it up.
Sorry to hear, man. I like it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's a lot of younger generation of coffee roasters in Vietnam. You see what they're doing is they're taking pride in Robusta. They're not there. There was this notion of a third wave coffee movement, so to speak, where people said, "Okay, we've been growing Robusta here for ages. Let's also introduce Arabica for consumption in Vietnam and open those specialty coffee places that we all know and love from all over the world." Now, what I'm seeing more and more is people saying, "Hold on a second, Robusta can be great. Let's try to change our methods to make something great out of it." There are quite a lot of places, mostly down south in Saigon, closer to the supply chain, whatever. It's super, super, super interesting. Vietnam, in my opinion, they're just incredibly fast. The Vietnamese are oftentimes early adopters of trends, and they're very innovative. And of course, I'm generalizing, but they're
it's
very innovative in how they introduce trends to the world. And it's all every time I go there I've done, I don't know, more than 50 trips. And it's always a fascinating experience. Always.
Yeah. I love that you stayed on this story for so long, and I think we'll maybe work on a story for Taste. We'll get into some of your other work for Taste because it wasn't just your trip to Ethiopia. You've written other stories, but let's go back and zoom out a bit. I want to get a sense, Eyal, you grew up in Israel. You grew up traveling around the world, but what got you interested in focusing on chefs, restaurants, and photographing food? I love your work as a photographer, as a filmmaker. You have a really great aesthetic that feels naturalistic. It feels extremely documentary. It's what I value a lot. I think that goes back to our shared values. We both love documentary filmmaking. Tell me about what got you interested in this.
Just to make a small correction, I did not grow up traveling at all. Actually my first flight I've ever taken was after I was already an adult.
No way. That's funny. I always thought you were a little bit more of a traveler.
No. Not, I sort of maybe have been compensating for the past decade or so. But I started traveling. And I say this to a lot of people that work with me. My only motivation in life is curiosity. I'm extremely curious, and I am never willing to accept a superficial explanation for something. And food is just this kind of thing that we all consume. There's not. I mean, you can live in an empty apartment and not care at all about interior design, but you cannot not eat. So I think it was always sort of a pathway for me to explore different countries and cultures and to understand the world better, which was my motivation. Chefs are just sort of the people who present that. But to me, it was just the first level. I always was fascinated to explore the manufacturers and the farmers and to speak with people throughout the entire supply chain and learn from them, and therefore, or as a result of that, just understand what's going on.
Yeah, and getting in close where maybe other writers or photographers or filmmakers have not gone, and you've traveled extensively through Italy, you've traveled through parts of America, and I want to get a sense of some favorite editorial assignments or even commercial work that you've done related to food and food travel.
Yeah, I think in terms, it's always editorials pretty much, because the kind of work that we do is always focusing on storytelling, understanding even when we work with branded content. So it's always, what is the story of the brand? What are we trying to convey? Who are we conveying it for? So I think Vietnam, and specifically the coffee project in Vietnam, is definitely up there. It's just, I think, it's just a rare story. I don't know. I owe a lot of my success to that project, which I did a project about the origins of food in Piemonte, in northern Italy, and specifically I focused on kitchens led by women. I started asking those questions because I interviewed a lot of chefs and people who make food around the world and around Italy, I'm sorry. And you always ask them, hey, where did you learn how to cook? And they always tell you from those nonnas. And then those nonnas, you don't see them in the kitchens. And that was kind of the question that we went on to explore. And food in Italy is a religion. It's holy. And specifically in Piemonte, how they treat the produce and the things that surround them, I don't think it exists like that in any other place in the world, and it was extremely fascinating to explore.
What did the nonnas tell you that maybe some of our listeners don't know? Like, we obviously have this culture of the nonna and hand-rolled pasta, but there's probably other techniques, there's other, products that are being manipulated and worked by the nonnas that isn't pasta in Piemonte. So tell me about that a bit.
It's everything, and this is something that's very unique to Italy. The aspect of regionality. There's the region of Piemonte, but inside Piemonte there's Lanche, and there are other areas. And inside Lanche you can see Barolo, and you can see other places. So every single thing that comes from the ground has been taken as this is our method of bringing it to the world, and we pass it to the next generation. I have not seen any other place that does that to that extent of almost obsession. And I have not seen any other place in the world where you can see that.
Speaking of covering women in the kitchen, one of the, I would say, most memorable stories you've worked on for Taste was a piece you reported from Ramallah in 2018. And you went into the kitchens of Ramallah, and you've profiled a very specific bread. Talk about this piece. I'm going to link to the show notes. It's one of my favorite pieces. And talk about reporting from Ramallah in the West Bank.
As an Israeli covering Palestinian culture, the story just ticked all the boxes for me. I never express my opinion when I cover stories, and this was just, to me, I use the camera, if you will, as a microphone. I was like, okay, just whatever it is that you want to share. So this was an opportunity for me to explore something. Ramallah is less than an hour drive from where I grew up, but because of geopolitical climate, these are people that we were never, we never hung out. We shared the same food. We grew up in basically the same region, an hour away from each other. And the only thing that we think about when we communicate with each other is war. It's almost redundant to say, but I'm not a big fan of war. And if I can use the documentary work that I do to build bridges, then that's incredible. Beyond that, we just met amazing people that have been maintaining some culinary traditions for many generations. It was just fascinating to go there and show something that I don't think a lot of people cover.
Yeah, and the bread is moussakhan, right?
Yeah, it's more of a dish that contains flatbread.
Yeah.
And what we specifically went to cover is it's kind of a special occasion dish because it's a long process of making it.
Talk about it a bit.
Yeah, so it's flatbread basically dipped in olive oil, roasted chicken on top of it, and very sumac heavy. Sumac is a acidic purple spice that grows around the region of the West Bank. So when everything is in season, it's just an amazing thing. It's kind of like a shared dish, like kind of family style, as you call it. And we covered a mother and daughter business where they cook this for funerals. You don't get that a lot anywhere in the world. It's an incredible dish. I've been eating this since I was a kid. It was very fascinating to explore the origins of this. I highly recommend, if you have the time, to even try to make it yourself.
What's it like covering Ramallah as an Israeli and as a journalist, going into the West Bank and covering the food scene there? Because I know you've made many trips and been able to photograph Ramallah quite extensively.
Yeah, I don't recommend to Israelis to try to do that.
Yeah.
I have my connections there that helped me do it safely. I wish I could give you a romantic answer, but it's mostly sad because Ramallah is a great city. A lot of the people that I know there are phenomenal, and this entire thing just should have existed as one big community. It could have been the best tourism destination in the world if people would have just got there together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so going there is mostly sad. It's mostly seeing the potential of what could have been, but politicians are dragging us down because of, I guess, interests of power and money.
Thank you for sharing, Eyal. I appreciate being honest in your work. It's important. I'm again linked to that piece in the show notes because I think that's a great piece to go back to, particularly looking at Ramallah in 2018, which has changed a bit now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about a really cool company that you've launched, and I really want you to talk about it. It's called The Unnamed Traveler, and you're building something new when it comes to recommendations for travelers. We're always talking about summer travel and fall travel here, where we're going, the restaurants, and there's obviously a whole industry of recommendation engines. You're kind of flipping it on its head. You're changing the game a bit, using every cliche, but it's true.
Sure.
I want to hear a little bit about what you're building there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm always excited to talk about it. We, just as a byproduct of our work, we've operated in more than 100 and the vast majority of countries in the world by now. And I take teams with me, and I need to produce week-long productions. We always need to know where to go, how to go, why to go there. It's just a byproduct of what we do. And as a result of that, a lot of people always reach out to me and say, hey, I'm in London for 2 days. Where should I go eat? I'm here. I'm there. It's just what we do. So I've noticed a trend of terrible travel. I don't blame people.
You mean traveling and having terrible experiences?
I mean just a bad way to travel, because people have limited time. They Google where to go, and they get terrible recommendations because social media forces us to recommend this kind of cycle of places that appeal to social media. People rely on online reviews. Those are oftentimes inaccurate, and I'm being generous here. I hated that. I saw places in Paris that were amazing and did not get the kind of movement that of tourists that they should have gotten, whereas places that are VC backed, they're basically a factory product appealing to social media and food reviewers, just getting so much traction. And what you see is, and this is something that I can tell you after 10 years of travel, there used to be so much difference between the different places that I went to, and now not so much.
Such a great point. I experienced that in London last summer, and I was like shocked. I've been in London like 7-8 years, and I was shocked about how American it felt.
Yeah.
Same in neighborhoods in Seoul, which I think Seoul and Korea is certainly not that as a whole, but you go to certain neighborhoods and it feels like you're in America.
Yeah. And this is why, in many ways, going back to that Vietnamese coffee project, this is why I love it so much, because they're doing something that's theirs. They're not copying and imitating something that happens and something that appeals to TikTok all over the world. So the business that we started is basically to give people an alternative. It's I don't like using the word exclusive, but for lack of a better word, it's not widely available. We share alternative guides, and we're a community of travelers, of crazy people like myself that travel for a living. And we just want to highlight and showcase local culture, understanding where to go, why going to certain places, and how to participate and not just consume. That's what we're trying to do. And I think the database that I've been so carefully curating for the past decade, I think that's a great chance for me to sort of highlight it and I guess give back to all those great places that built my career.
So how does Unnamed Traveler work? Do you sign up for the newsletter and you get like picks, or are you doing curated trips for your clients?
Yeah, we basically 3 tiers. I don't want to decide for people what their budget is or what they need to do. We have very specific digital guides of what to do in New York, what to do here, what to do there, and all sorts of places around the world. You can buy just one or multiple, or you can buy a monthly membership that gives access to all the guides. The third tier is that we actually create a curated list for you. And it's curated by people who are, I would say, and this is why I call it unnamed, because these are people who are not professional travel guides. They are just experts of that region. These are the people that I go to when I need to run an assignment in a new place. And we use a lot of what we do to give back to those places. So this is kind of like how it works. It's not for everyone. 100%. I am aware of that.
What do you mean by that? That's a great point.
A lot of people don't want to go the extra mile, and that's perfectly fine. Some people just want to get the 10 best restaurants in New York list and to be left alone, and that's perfectly fine. That's just not what we do. I try to provide an alternative to the best of culture, because I don't think that's a real thing.
Are you thinking that these experiences are just giving you a real I'm going to use a corny term, but like a locals only experience? Are you thinking that these are the places that are doing like exceptional cuisine? Because I think it really varies. Like, it could be all about the experience, and the cuisine is good but not great. But it also could be about like, this is like the best, Neapolitan style pizza you're ever going to find in Vietnam, if that's what you're really craving that day.
Yeah, I would probably never send somebody to eat Neapolitan pizza in Vietnam. That's kind of the point.
Great call. That's a great. I'm glad you.
Yeah. And I feel okay tell you that because I know that you wouldn't either.
No, I was kind of giving you a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. This is more of if you're going to a place, say we take Paris for example, if you want to understand Parisian culture, if you want to eat the kind of food that made Paris what it is, here are the places that I would go to. If you have other places that you wish to go to, I don't think that your list is any less worthy than mine. I just don't. Who am I to tell you this is the best foie gras to eat? I think it's a crazy concept. So it's more the place that we recommend. They're all exceptional for sure, but they're giving you a way to understand. And I would say the perfect target audience for this is maybe people who have been to a place once already, and now they want to dive deeper. This is where we are.
Great. There's a huge opportunity there. There's a need for that. I think everyone has been fortunate to have some travel in their life. Many listeners have been able to go overseas and see these beautiful cities. And on second review, you want a little different experience.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot and ask for maybe one or two recs for two cities. And these are the two that pop in my head right now. New York City, where we are recording this, and London.
Yeah.
What are your two picks? What are a couple picks for each city?
So people are tired of hearing me say that, but when I go to a city, I try to eat things that can only exist there. So for New York City, it's a New York style pizza. My favorite. My favorite is Luigi's in Park Slope. I think it's the greatest pizza in the world. Gio is the greatest man in the world. And this whole thing is, I wish if I were to create a utopian society, I would make him the mayor.
I love it.
It's phenomenal. Every time you go, this is a person that doesn't need to work, but he still works passionately every day. They have the cash register. It's not decoration, but they've been using it for about 70 years. Mm-hmm. It's just wonderful. And the pizza is just phenomenal. I would go to eat all the Jewish delis because it's such a sub-genre of a culture that really does not exist anywhere else. Get a lox bagel from Russ and Daughters. Go to Second Avenue Deli. Go to those places. London is very interesting because I don't think people understand sometimes how big London is. Yeah. So instead, I would just recommend you to venture out of Soho, or wherever it is in central London, Zone 1 that you stay in. Go to Clapham and go eat Indian food. Go far east for some Vietnamese places. Go up north. Go to follow a group of football hooligans and go to their favorite bar and eat a Sunday roast. Do those things.
Yeah.
And this is also, they're very rarely you can see in the Unnamed Traveler guides a Michelin guide restaurant, and it's not because I think they're not good. Some of them are phenomenal. I just don't think you need us for that.
Yeah, you're doing the work that you again. For someone who knows the city and has been to maybe the Michelin place, has been to the St. John's of the world, which we love.
Yeah.
What's the next trip? What's it going to bring? And so you could just I'll put a link in the show notes. It's a website where we're signing up for your newsletter. Is that right? Or
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, sign up for the newsletter. Get in touch with Eyal and maybe Eyal can hook you up with a curated guide.
Yeah.
What does this cost?
It really depends. It's a few dollars, depends on the size of the most basic guide. Say, here are 5 great pubs in London to eat a Sunday roast, a few dollars for that. Monthly membership is $19.99. The curated list, there are a few ways to do that, but it's basically $250 for something that we curate specifically for you after you answer a bunch of questions that get us to understand what it is that you need and what it is that you're looking for in your trip.
I love that. It's really a great value if you think about how much time you already spend looking around, and here's a group of folks, not just Eyal but his team, who can set up a wonderful trip day by day. for a pretty, I would say, modest fee. I mean, it's not for everyone, but it's a pretty modest fee.
We also, I mean, not only, I mean, of course, I think it's a modest fee.
Yeah.
But we also, a significant chunk of the revenue we donate to nonprofits that promote those small businesses that we highlight in our guides. So it's another thing to consider.
I loved that you mentioned that. I forgot to say that, but there is a nonprofit model here in some ways that you're of course respecting the locations that you're recommending. It's not just for you; it's to share back to the.
Our goal is to highlight and to make sure that they continue to exist, as opposed to exploiting their wonderful craft.
Yeah. Eyal, this is Taste. We asked guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire Fast and Furious taste check. Are you ready?
I am born ready.
The best fruit.
Fermented grapes.
Okay, tell me about those. I'm curious.
No, I'm just referring to wine.
Oh, okay.
I don't really eat fruit, to be honest.
I was like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about wine? I guess we're talking about wine. I mean, listen, that's a great answer. Fermented grapes in a bottle.
It would be, I just don't really eat too much fruit. It's great. I just don't.
Yeah, not a big fruit fan.
Yeah.
The worst vegetable.
The worst. Eggplants. I hate eggplants.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm sure it's great. I just don't like it.
Sure, it's great. I've tried it. Yeah. Can be a tough hang. The best dessert.
Oh, God. Turkish rice pudding.
What makes it special?
I don't know. It's just something. Maybe it's after you've had, 3 tons of kebab. And so maybe it's my state of mind.
It
I just
smooths
love
you
it.
out a little bit?
Yeah, maybe.
Your favorite American fast food chain?
It's the classic answer is In-N-Out. In-N-Out is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I know it's not very sophisticated. In-N-Out is just great.
Okay, a few more. Your favorite cookbook of all time?
I barely consume any. I think this is going to sound very cheesy, but I bought Korea World that you put out. Because I don't know, maybe it's because I generally, I think you know that about me. I just don't consume content.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I don't watch any shows. I don't listen to podcasts. So I just buy what my friends make.
Fair.
And when I do, I love it.
I appreciate that. Thanks, I appreciate you supporting. All right, these are going to be the controversial Rex, but we're going to go through a couple cities. Your favorite LA restaurant right now?
The thing, it's same thing. Go to places that can only exist over there. When you're in LA, Thai town is there. It's the only Thai town in the world. You can eat great Bangkok, central Thailand cuisine, and then walk 5 minutes to Northern Thai Food Club and eat a fermented sausage and khao soi from Northeast Vietnam. Walk 5 minutes to Jitlada and eat Southern Thai curries. No other place in the world you can do that. Go have casual lunch at John and Vinny's. Go to those iconic old-timey places like Musso and Frank's or Dear John's. Drive, and I told you about this place a million times.
Yeah.
Drive 2 hours to Santa Barbara, go to Cold Spring Tavern and eat a French dip. It's just nowhere else in the world you can have that.
Speaking of French dip, we were down in downtown LA recently.
Yeah, true.
Your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
I mentioned Luigi's, and I will say
That's
it
your
again
guy?
because I just think it's
Your second one. Your next one.
yeah. Maybe Second Avenue Deli.
Yeah.
I just think it's a great place.
I love it. You're sticking to your guns.
Yeah.
Your favorite restaurant in Tel Aviv right now?
There's a place, I have photos to prove that. I go there every time I visit Tel Aviv. I go there directly from the airport with my bags. I'm not kidding. It's called Jasmino. Restaurant is a big word for what they are. They're more of like a street food, a kebab place. All my years and all of my trips, I have never had better kebab. I love smoky flavors. I love smoky whiskey. I love everything with smoke. And this is basically eating smoke and pita bread, and I can't think of anything
can't go
better.
wrong there. Last one, your favorite restaurant in Paris?
Cliche, but Bistro Paulbert.
Yeah,
It's cliche. Again, I know, given what I just shared, I should probably try to surprise you or give you something alternative, but no, it's just
you're
classic. And classics never die.
You're playing it straight. I appreciate it. And if you do subscribe, you'll get more than Bistro Paulbert, but you gotta recognize the legend there.
You would get maybe specific tips for Bistro Paulbert on what to order and when to go.
Good point. There'll be more than just the name of it.
Yeah.
A cuisine you would like to learn more about?
It's going to sound cheesy, but everything that's happening in Southeast Asia, the economical development that's happening there is creating new things and I know a lot. I know more than 99% of the people just because I've been there so many times, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of there's so much to learn, and I'm obsessed.
Last one, your favorite sandwich?
A lox bagel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had a more interesting answer.
No, lox bagel works for me.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
It's a good one. Eyal, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you, Matt. That was great.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.